in discussion while we have the amendment in front of us. Chair Ekman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will move House File 14 to be laid over, and I'll also move the delete all amendment as well, delete everything. True.
Okay, can you please explain the bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The original broadband bill, members, was for $120 million, $60 million for each year of the biennium. When targets came out in that, it had to be reduced. So the delete all amendment appropriates $30 million to the Office of Broadband one time for the border broadband fund account, and $350,000 of each year of the biennium for their to be able to manage the account, Madam Chair, and that would be the extent of the bill. I think what we've seen in this past year of the pandemic, Madam Chair, members, is that broadband is as important or more important now than it ever has been. We also take a look at the vast amounts of federal money that that have come into the state under RDOF and are going to be coming into the state under ARP. And so we want to make sure that the Office of Broadband has $30 million for the first year of the biennium so that they can get these projects out and then try to untangle what all the federal funding means. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll stand for questions.
All right, so want to thank you, Chair Ekman, for that introduction of your bill. Are there any questions or comments on the DE2 amendment? I have Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Chair Ekman, I think I'm in the right order. I know this is your delete everything, but this is essentially your bill. So I'll just ask my couple of quick questions now, really to the bill. It's pretty simple, so I think that's what you're going with. I have two questions for you. The first one is with this money, and then I don't remember the name of it, but we got all that federal money a couple of years ago as well, to the tune of like $100 million or something like that. Now there's more COVID money. The first question that I have, has the broadband office identified that we have that much work that we either have ahead of us or can be done in a given year? Because I know with construction seasons that can be somewhat limiting. Are they confident that they could, if you will, expend this money on projects that are out there before us in the next 2 years?
Chair Ekman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Miller, I don't know about the federal money. We're still trying to untangle what that actually means, especially the RDOF funding that you referenced. But the Office of Broadband will be able to get these $30 million grants out when they do the normal RFP.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will tell you that that's a concern of mine. It's always like us to say, well, more money is better money. And there's a lot of money going into broadband. And I think from Representative Garofalo, you're going to hear some opinions on that I'll refrain from. But I just want to make sure that when we're approving money that there's part of when we talk about competitive grants, we always think, well, that's limiting, like that keeps people from being able to do things. But sometimes the competitive grants also rise to the top of projects that really should be done and are ready. And I just don't want to just start finding places to do projects. I guess we'll see what happens with that. The second question that I have, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this policy because my communities have come to me. And when we say broadband, what we're really talking about with the broadband office is fiber optic. And out in my communities, a lot of the communities are wanting to do what's called a hybrid system. So there's fiber optic, but then there's also fiber optic to antennas that then, whether it be to a farm site or for whatever reason, they want to be able to do some wireless stuff as well as part of the system. And they're telling me that under this grant application, they can't do that. It's essentially fiber optic or nothing. And so can you clarify that? Is that correct, or are they misunderstanding this? Because that's going to be a real important thing for the communities that want to apply for this.
Chair Ekman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Miller, at this time, that is correct. I believe that we need to start probably figuring out some of our broadband policies to see if these things work. And I'll give you a prime example. In my district, there's a company called Treehouse Communication, and they are providing wireless broadband to 300, I believe it's 300, better than 350 people. I thought the number was 386, but 350, better than 350 customers in and around Burnside Lake in Ely. And they're using the water tower in Ely, and if anybody comes in Ely, they can recognize that iconic tower as soon as they come in. So they're using a water tower in Ely, and then they're using 2 or 3 other smaller towers to relay that signal. And they are telling me that when this is rolled out, that they will meet or exceed state broadband speed goals. So I think going forward, we're going to need to take a look at a lot of this type of things, Representative Miller and members, because as these systems develop out, we need to figure out how we can get it to our more rural customers. And Representative Miller, your district is a lot like mine. When you get out into the rural parts of it, when you're a half mile between mailboxes, it makes it a real challenge for normal providers to be able to provide fiber to the premise.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Chair Moran. I'll leave it at that. I can tell you that there's a couple other policy things that are getting in the way of some of this making sense, but that's definitely one of the biggest issues. If we're going to be spending this money, I have some thoughts on that, but if we're going to be spending this money, we certainly want to be able to do projects that make sense, and the communities in my area are kind of handcuffed on that issue. That's a real big issue for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Miller. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, so DE2 is getting amended on the what House file?
14. I'm sorry, 1524.
Madam Chair, you were correct the first time.
14?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so 14 is going to be the vehicle that will contain 1342, 1524, 1670. Do I have that right?
So we'll be merging this bill that we're on now with House File 1524, which is the Ag bill.
Okay, so but earlier on we had merged 1342 and 1670. Is that
Yes.
bill going to be traveling separately, or is that going to be attached to these bills as well?
So we did merge those two bills, right, together, and they went to the General Register.
Okay, so Madam Chair, my question is that those bills that we merged together, are they going to be attached to these bills as well at some point in the process?
I don't know right now at this moment. Maybe you can ask the chairs. Chris, would you happen to know how they're going to travel?
Yes, Madam Chair, Representative Garofalo. So the first 2 bills that we acted on today were combined into Representative Miller's bill on Fund 1532. That bill moved down to the General Register. It will be its own bill. The 2 bills now on the agenda, House File 14 will be amended with this delete everything amendment laid over, and then the language of this bill as amended will be merged onto the agriculture bill, and that bill with the agriculture and broadband provisions will move to the General Register as a separate bill on House File 1520.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. McCall. I appreciate that explanation. I'll clarify it a different way. There has been discussions that these bills that we're talking about are actually, at some point in the process, going to get merged together as one larger bill. And that's the question. I understand that we're going to pass 2 separate bills out of this committee. What I'm asking is if these 2 bills that we're passing separately are then going to be merged. The 2 bills, which are actually 4 bills, if those 2 bills are going to be merged into one bill.
Well, I have not heard that, Representative Garofalo. You've heard more than me. Maybe you can ask the authors of the bills that you are requiring that, maybe you can ask the authors of House File 14 whether or not that is where his bill will eventually land. So to Chair Eklund, could you respond to Representative Garofalo whether or not these will be merged into one bigger bill?
Madam Chair, it's my understanding that House File 14 will be merged with the Ag Bill, and as far as I know, that's as far as the merging will go.
Councilman Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just Representative Eklund, Madam Chair, if and when the decision is made to combine all four of those bills into one bill, if you could just let our staff know or let me know, we certainly would appreciate that. So, Representative Eklund, I do not have an amendment for your DE2 amendment, but I do want to get your opinion on something. In the federal legislation, the $2.5 billion, they specifically call out broadband as a permissible use. And so, in thinking about how we're going to be approaching this, I was considering offering an amendment to your bill on the House floor that would be a conditional appropriation. So it would not appropriate any money, but it would say if certain criteria were met, then these dollars could come from the federal funds as opposed to from general fund dollars. There's multiple reasons to do that, but before I go forward on that pathway, I want to kind of get your feedback and if that's something you have an opinion on.
Representative Chair Eklund.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Garofalo, I think that's certainly worth looking at. I think if you take a look at what we've done, you take a look at last summer with the CARES Act dollars and what's happening with other federal funding that's coming out. The federal government, in its wisdom, has put some crazy conditions on things. And so, if in fact we can figure out how to pay for this with federal money, I'd certainly be interested in taking a look at that. But I'd want to see what the language looks like, run it by staff, and make sure that it would work.
And Madam Chair, Representative Eklund, again, I don't have an amendment for you today, but also whether it's fixed wireless, cellular data, fiber, geosynchronous satellite, or low Earth orbit satellite, I don't think people really care as long as they have 25 down, 3 meg up speeds. Any opinions on some language we could put into this appropriation later on that would allow our satellite or emerging providers to be able to be individuals to qualify for grants at an individual basis as opposed to requiring it that be paid for infrastructure?
Chair Eklund.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Garofalo, it's my understanding that the Office of Broadband is neutral on technology as long as it meets the broadband speeds. I think we had a similar conversation last year when we were doing whatever house file it was that we had broadband in 2 years ago. And so as long as we meet the speeds that we need, I think the Office of Broadband would be willing to work with that.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Representative Eklund, I think the concern is that if we're working with satellite providers, what we're doing is providing grants to individual customers as opposed to entities, and that's where the office has complained in the past is that it gives them less control over those funds and administering them. So that's a conversation I hope that you have with the Senate in terms of how it's going to be appropriated. So I obviously have some opinions about broadband, but in the interest of time, I'll save those for the House floor. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion to the bill? Seeing none, Chair Eklund renews his motion to adopt the DE2 amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. So I want to just say again, I want to just thank Chair Eklund for carrying the bill to help build a better broadband infrastructure to every part of Minnesota and to make us all more connected. With that, Chair Eklund, would you like to have some last words?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think this past year, like I said in my opening, has shown us that broadband is an integral part of what we need to do to function in society, whether it be school, work, or pleasure. And all residents in the state of Minnesota deserve broadband. It is no longer a luxury, but it is a necessity, and I liken it to rural electrification. So when we get ready to merge this bill onto the Ag bill, Madam Chair, I ask for member support.
Thank you, Chair Eckman. So there being no further discussion, the chair will lay House File 14 over as amended.